I have some things from the Social Justice Committee.
For the average high schooler these days, life is mostly about good grades, the latest TikTok, and fitting in.
We wanted to look at some college courses to kind of go along with our African American Studies course.
But for 18-year-old Machayla Randall, life is also about making a difference.
What do you want to reform in your educational experience?
There's definitely a lack of education of African American history throughout our school system. The most you learn about African American history is during the month of February, which is
Black History Month.
Black History Month, and it's limited to the Civil Rights Movement, and that's pretty much it, unfortunately.
As protests for social justice erupted across the nation this last year, many students faced their own moment of racial reckoning in the classroom.
Hey, it's Machayla and the other leaders of the African American Culture Club.
Hi, on the club.
For Machayla and her classmates in New Jersey, change begins with a course correction in history.
What specifically are you and the group asking for in the curriculum?
Right now, specifically, we're asking for a mandatory African American Studies course at the high school level.
Last summer, following the death of George Floyd, Machayla and members of the African American Culture Club formed the Social Justice Committee.
I felt isolated. Eventually, those feelings kind of turned into action.
The students organized a Juneteenth protest focused on education.
Stop relying on social media, your Black neighbors and friends to educate yourself on your history.
What led you to take this kind of an activist approach?
We were definitely inspired by the rising action across the nation. We just needed our voice, and we just needed to push for what we wanted.
I'm honored to stand together with our students this afternoon.
It was incredible what they were able to put together, and they put this march together to stop the ignorance.
Dr. Joseph Malash, a Cherry Hill native, has been superintendent for 6 years.
As the adults, we have to make sure that we are physically there for them, and sometimes even if we are just standing alongside, to make sure that they have the opportunity to speak. If I can lend my voice, my figure, and my presence to that, then that certainly is my responsibility to do that.
Black Lives Matter.
For now, both high schools in Cherry Hill offer an African American Studies course as an elective. But the predominantly white school district may soon be the first in New Jersey to make it a requirement.
We have to teach it. We have to talk about it. History through the lens of white eyes or white Americans cannot continue to be the dominant and singular piece through which we teach. And again, when we talk about folks of color, it can't just be 5 or 6 individuals that children hear about from elementary school through high school. It needs to be all of our history. Black history is our history.
I absolutely thought about how could I help these students to bring what they're asking us to life.
The director of curriculum, Dr. Farah Mahan, recognizes the flaws in today's history courses.
I think we have to move beyond courses that really talk about how so many people of color were taken from their homes and from their countries and colonized, and that we start to look at our curriculum not through a Eurocentric perspective, but through a perspective that really highlighted Black and brown excellence.
She's been working closely with authors, local professors, and universities, as well as students, to design the potential course.
What do our students know about Maya Angelou and the significance behind Malcolm X, not just Martin Luther King? We are asking the students, tell us, what part of history would you really like to see brought to life in this course?
That would be a huge change to make sure that all students not only had access to, but that was part of their requirement, just like any other requirements. Huge difference in how they see other people, how they see themselves, how they see their country. And that they have that sense of pride in us being so unique in that way.
In fact, some college students are expressing frustration with incomplete lessons in the high school classroom.
What I was thinking was...
Stanford University sophomores Jasmine Nguyen and Caitlin Zhou launched the campaign Diversify Our Narrative in response to the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as their personal experiences in high school.
Growing up, it was a bit difficult to see that I wasn't really represented in the classroom, and so I think it can be difficult, not just for me as an Asian American, but honestly any person of color, when they're growing up, not really seeing yourself and your people portrayed in a manner that really reflects your rich cultural history and portrays you in a multidimensional way.
We need to see diversity in our education that represents...
They created the student-led campaign and organized with students across the country to help form new chapters within their very own districts.
To add different perspectives into our history and literature curriculums.
Their original mission, one book by and about a person of color in each school per grade level.
We also have other chapters that have started their own petitions branching off that are actually advocating for things like the end of the school-to-prison pipeline in their respective district or getting police officers off campus. And so I think it originally started with this one book campaign, but has now kind of sprawled into this much larger idea of like racial justice and educational equity on a larger level.
Their campaign now reaching 800 school districts across the nation with more than 5,000 organizers participating. But with change, often there is pushback.
I think a lot of the reason why there is backlash is because a lot of people are uncomfortable when you try to change the status quo.
Backlash is something this Utah school is familiar with. The predominantly white charter school is no longer allowing parents to opt their children out of Black History Month curriculum after coming under fire for initially giving families the option to do so. The Academy Director, Micah Hirakawa, wrote on the school's Facebook page yesterday saying, "We regret that after receiving requests, an opt-out form was sent out concerning activities planned during this month of celebration. And at this time, no families are opting out of our planned activities, and we have removed this option." The fight to diversify lessons in the classroom has gone on for decades. Between 1965 and 1972, hundreds of thousands of black students from nearly 1,000 schools and universities across the nation formed the Black Campus Movement, inspired by the Black Power movement, demanding black studies, progressive black universities, and for a diverse system of higher education.
I think if we look throughout history, it almost always comes from the young people, doesn't it? I think that in part is because they still are so very idealistic and determined. That's why we have seen throughout history young people lead these movements.
Back in Cherry Hill, a hopeful outcome is on the horizon. The vote to require the African American Studies course is being presented to the school board later this month. If passed, it could be mandatory for all Cherry Hill High School students as early as this fall.
This work is not just about next year. It's really about building our body of work and building a legacy for students.
The only way that society has grown throughout the last few thousand years is that communities come together and support one another. This is not an individual endeavor.
I'm hoping for younger generations to have better experiences than us.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.